that's a big part of being an entrepreneur is the constant desire to always want to learn more.
Oh yeah, we're forever
And
learning.
to forever learn, like you just want to absorb as much information as you can,
Yeah.
so you could just be sharper and you could be more strategic and
Right.
you could be a good leader. And I think
Absolutely.
that is important. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs stop. They're so focused on the grind
Yeah.
that they stop learning how to be better in the position that they're in. And
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to the Leadership Reality Podcast with your girl, Ty G Charity. This podcast is for C-suite leaders to discuss their experiences and provide insight, encouragement, and inspiration for seasoned and inspiring leaders, offering valuable solutions to today's challenges that will inspire, ignite, and invigorate new and seasoned leaders to walk in their God-given authority with compassion, kindness, and empathy. So sit back, relax, and be prepared to be inspired with today's episode of Leadership Reality. Thank you.
Welcome to another episode of Leadership Realities with me, Ty G Charity. Y'all, I had the privilege of sharing the TEDx Inglewood stage last year with today's phenomenal guest. And I do mean phenomenal. She's a brand architect, innovation catalyst, creative visionary, and more. Miss Beny Ashburn. Beny is the co-founder of Crown and Hobbs Brewing Company and a pioneering force in the brewing industry. As one of the few Black female leaders in this space, she is redefining success against the odds. Beny's legacy of excellence comes from her distinguished family. Her mother, Yvette Robinson, was a director at Philip Morris, and her father, Beny Ashburn, founder of the iconic Commodores. Yep, you heard me, the Commodores. With over 20 years in advertising and brand marketing, she has pioneered with industry giants like Ogilvy and Beats by Dr. Dre. Y'all, I hope she brought us some beats in here today, okay? Beny has built her company, Crowns and Hobbs, into a $1 million craft beer industry, showcasing her innovative spirit. Now she empowers brands to transform and thrive, sharing her insights through speaking engagements to inspire the next generation of leaders. I learned at TEDx she is often known as the dope CEO. We're gonna talk about that. Beny, welcome to the show. I'm so excited. Y'all, let me tell y'all. So for TEDx Inglewood last year, I was the opening speaker and Beny here was the closing speaker.
And you were quite the opening speaker. You set the tone for all of us. So we had to know exactly how we had to follow your lead. So, yeah.
Well, honey, you closed us out well, because all I remember was starting a revolution.
Man,
I was like,
you gotta put your fist in the air
you
sometimes.
gotta put your fist in the air sometimes. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. Let's talk. Okay, so you come from just a rich family of leaders. Let's talk about you growing up, and then we want to talk about Crowns and Hobbs and how you started that, because I know a little bit of your story, but I want to share it with the audience. So tell me, when did you, just talk about a little bit of you growing up, being in such a rich family, structure.
So I was born and raised in New York, Harlem. And I was raised by a single mom. My dad, yes, was the manager and founder of the Commodores, but died when I was very young. He died when I was 3. So I was raised by my amazing, strong, independent black woman mother. She worked for Philip Morris in a position that didn't really exist for Black women at all, but specifically in an industry that didn't even see, Black events and activations in that world at Philip Morris. So growing up with her, I traveled around with her most of my young life, doing events all over the US. Literally I had like a VIP Continental. If anyone doesn't know what Continental is, that was an airline that used to exist back in our day. And I got to watch her be amazing, and she taught me about work ethic. She taught me about leadership, how to manage a team. While she was the boss, she still was in there doing the work. I traveled with her and I was stuffing gift bags and I was working, events and doing all that stuff, because in her mind, it didn't really matter what role you had. You just had to get it done, and you had to get it done with your team, and you had to respect your team. And that's kind of, I think, where I learned how to just do whatever you need to do
to get the job done.
To get the job done.
Yes.
So,
Nike said, just do it.
You gotta just do it. You gotta just
Did
do
it
it.
ever feel intimidating as you grew up to sort of model such a phenomenal leader, especially in starting your own business? Did you feel any pressure there at all, or it just kind of felt natural, like I got this because I've watched it?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because during that time when I was traveling with her, you would never believe I was extremely shy. I was the
Really?
little 12, 13-year-old that would walk with her head down, but I was the little kid that was behind the scenes, telling people jokes, being like, super personable and entertaining the small, intimate groups. But when it came to having presence in front of a lot of people, it was really uncomfortable for me. And it wasn't until I started to see that my superpower is connecting with people. And then I think as I got older, sadly, my mom passed before Crowns and Hops even started, before I even considered getting into beer. But I think my whole life, I've had this entrepreneurial spirit. I've had so many companies I tried to start. When I was in college, I went to Spelman College. I had an all-female street team. And our very first event was doing the Wu-Tang album release party.
Not the
in it, the
Wu-Tang.
Wu-Tang. I had 10 Spelman girls doing the Wu-Tang album release. I mean, it was always, I was always hustling. And then I was doing events, promotional events in Atlanta. And then I was producing content. And then I was managing rap artists. For a very small stint, kind of co-managed the Dog Pound for a little while. I mean,
Wow.
yeah.
So you've worn multiple
I've
hats.
done multiple things, multiple jobs. I've lived multiple lives. So I think by the time it got to a place where I was, creating a business in beer, it wasn't surprising and it wasn't scary. It was kind of meant for me to do. Like I was meant to do something that no one's ever done before, because if you look at my history, that's clearly the path that I always kind of chose first.
Really? So I definitely want to know why beer? Like, how did it end up being a beer company and you end up being a brewer? But before that, I remember in your TED Talk, you talked about losing your mom one day and then like the next day losing your corporate job. And you said something to me that I thought was so profound in your speech. As heavy as that was, you stopped asking yourself, why did this happen to me? And switched that narrative to, why did this happen
For me?
And I was like, oh my gosh, like I've been running with that one when I want to find myself like, oh my, woe is me. And I'm like, wait a minute, why did this happen for me? So I want to talk about the beer. Like, how did you get into the beer industry?
So my business partner at the time, when we first started, introduced me to craft beer. I wasn't even a beer drinker, to be honest. And for me, I didn't fall in love with beer, the product. I fell in love with the craft beer community. And if you don't really know anything that much about it, it's very family friendly. Believe it or not, it's very responsible when it comes to actual drinking. If you ever go to a tap room, people are playing games, they're listening to music, everyone's chilling. Like you're sitting next to people that it could be the VP, right? Or it could just be a janitor, and we're all sitting down at the bar having a beer and just having a conversation. Beer kind of levels us and puts us kind of on neutral ground together.
Okay.
And I really loved that. And I realized in LA, there were no spaces where people of color could come together in that very neutral, safe, family-friendly environment while still adulting. Because let's be honest, it's alcohol. You're still going to drink, but you don't have to abuse it. And I think most of the opportunities that are available for us to enjoy those kind of moments are like in clubs where people are, getting drunk and
Getting
that's
sloppy
not
drunk.
right. And that's not the representation. That's not the representation that we have with our brand, and that's not what I want it to be. Like, I want to just have one drink sometimes, or not even. If you go to a tap room, you don't even have to drink beer, honestly. You could just go have a bite to eat and hang out and just be there with your friends. And I was so excited that I could create that space in LA for communities of color. And once you go down the rabbit hole of beer, you never really come out. And because marketing and branding and creative innovation is my specialty, it was fun to be able to create this new world in beer that never existed before. So it was shooting content where you saw us inside of beer in a lifestyle in a way no one's ever seen before. It was showing actual photography with Black faces and, you know, Black hands and Black lifestyle, having craft beer, you know, sitting on a stoop chilling, or, you know, hanging out with friends at a barbecue or playing a game of spades. Like, that's my life. And
Wow.
I got to actually show that through creativity and innovation in my brand.
So tell me, what were some of the pros and cons in starting your own business? Because your business, your beer is in multiple retail stores, right?
Yeah.
So what were the pros and cons, and how did you get to this multi-million-dollar business?
So not multi-million, just to be clear. We're getting there. We're working
Okay,
on it.
close to
We're
multi-million.
we're doing our best.
Okay, all right.
The original plan, like I said, was to open up a tap room, right?
Okay.
And we had a space in Inglewood, and then COVID hit. And we had to literally pivot our entire business plan to focus on selling beer in retail. But that was never really the plan. The plan was to have a space where people could physically come, have a pint, buy a 4-pack, you know, take it home, but really central all of our sales direct to customer in that space.
Okay.
But when you take that space away, we had already built this brand that everyone knew about, and we had already started producing some beer. We had to do a complete shift and say, all right, what do we do now that we can't open a physical space? And I think that was a shift across the industry. We have to figure out how to get it in retail.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. We started reaching out, or people were reaching out to us. We got in Whole Foods, we were in Disney, Total Wines and more, and we just focused on producing beer to go into retail since we no longer had that physical space. And it was hard. Like, I've never done this before.
Probably the hardest thing you've ever done,
It's
right?
one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Right.
I've not done sales before. I don't know anything about distribution, especially alcohol distribution, which is like a whole nother beast in of itself. But, you know, I would say we were really lucky in that there were a lot of people that wanted to see us win.
Oh, that's good.
And there are a lot of people that saw we were very consistent and we were very dedicated in the mission of the brand.
Yeah.
And when you're an entrepreneur and you have your own business, the only thing you have is your word. And the only thing that that people can believe in is who you say you are.
Yeah.
And I believe every single day for the last, like, our very first event was in 2016, which is crazy. That was like 8-9 years ago. And since that day, I have always been who I said I was in this business.
That's so important.
And that's important. That's why people show up for you.
Yeah.
Because they believe you are who you say you are.
Is that where the name Dope Boss came from?
Well, that's just because, I mean,
She's like, look at
Look,
me,
I mean,
okay?
that's
I'm just
I was
dope,
born
right?
now, right?
You know, born now. I
was
know that's
born,
right.
yeah.
I know that's right.
So originally the company was called Dope and Dank.
Oh.
Dope and Dank. We bridged dope culture with the dank world of craft beer. Dank is another word used to describe beer.
Okay.
We got a cease and desist on the name
Oh.
because someone owns the trademark dope in every
Really?
category except for beer. A young white guy, actually.
Oh,
We're
wow.
dope in every category. So in changing our name, we changed it to Crowns and Hops. But during that time, I was always the dope, and he was kind of the dank.
Okay, got it.
And then because I was more culture, you know, I had
Yeah.
a lot more experience in, you know, I used to work at Beats and all that stuff. And he was more dank. He's the beer maker. He produces the beer and comes up with the recipes and kind of bridges that together. It was this really nice yin and yang. So, but it stuck with me because I'm not your traditional CEO.
Right.
I think when you look at a CEO and the skills that they have coming into a business, they are not the skills that I think I have. To be honest, if I applied for my job as CEO, I would not have hired myself because
Interesting.
I didn't know what, you know, I don't know anything
I
about
get it. It's on the
you know what
job
I mean?
learning.
Like, yeah, you don't know
But I don't
anything
think
about
no one was a CEO until they became a CEO.
Right. Like, I think when you
Everybody
get hired
starts.
in like corporations to
Right.
come in from other CEO or other roles,
Right.
maybe, but as an entrepreneur, absolutely not. You don't know.
Absolutely.
You don't know how to do your P&Ls. You don't know how to
None of that.
do your market and run a business and do sales. You have no idea
Girl, I
what you're
can
doing.
relate. Let me tell you, when I started this company, Kids in the Spotlight and a studio, I didn't really know anything about foster care. I didn't know anything about nonprofit. I didn't know anything about filmmaking. I was starting something from the outside in all three of the areas that I'm working in. But that doesn't negate when you're called to do something and purpose calls your name and you yield to that.
Yeah.
You do what you got to do. As a matter of fact, one of our mutual friends who's also in the business, Miss Fawn Weaver, right? I mean, I know her from afar because I know her family. I love her parents. Her father was the first one, Frank Wilson, to actually donate to my organization. It started under, her father was a minister.
Right, I remember
both
you
her
told
parents.
me that.
And
Yeah.
it started under his ministry, and he was
Yeah.
the first person to write a check when I shared the vision
love
with
that.
him. And her mom, she is my,
She's
my mentor.
incredible.
Unbelievable.
She's incredible.
But she did a post the other day that just blew my mind, and it was burn the boat. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I did not see
But
that.
she was talking about how in military terms, they talk about burning the boat because you eliminating a plan B. When you step forward with plan A, there is no plan B. You better throw everything you got
Into
plan
plan
A
A.
and burn the boat. And I was like, girl, I was in my house like,
Yeah.
girl, you better tell them. But you know,
But
that is so
I
important.
will say,
Okay.
plan that. I don't know if I'm burning Plan B because
She's like,
I
about
get
it.
it.
Talk about
and
it.
Fawn, you know, I love her to death.
oh,
but
she, my girlfriend is
sometimes
doing
you
it.
cannot. Matter of fact, you better have a Plan B and a Plan C because I could tell you the amount of pivoting that I have had to do in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. I mean, it's incredible the amount of, that didn't work. Let me figure it out. What do I have to do next?
But you didn't negate what you're doing, the business.
No, I
and
did
see,
not.
that's what
So
I think she's
that's
talking
important.
about.
Yeah, you stay
not
focused
in terms
on your North
of
Star,
the
yeah.
task. Yeah, you
stay
we're forever
focused.
learning. As CEOs, as leaders,
Yeah.
you're forever learning. You're forever growing, and you learn through trial and error.
Yeah.
But the plan B is, okay, if I want to build a studio and it doesn't work, let me go over here back to my corporate job as my plan B.
Right.
That's what that narrative is.
And again, that's part of what the pivot is. When the pivot is, your foot is always in one singular place.
Yes.
So, and in that one place, you're moving around, but that one central point never changes as
Yeah.
you shift around the ways to execute that one point. So yeah, no, you're right.
Let's talk about the pivoting though,
Yeah.
because I want to talk about some of the cons in starting a business and leading, like the trial and errors. Like, what are some of the things you started out doing? You're like, oh, that ain't working. Let me try it a different way. And how do you encourage leaders to not give up when things don't go the way they initially thought or planned for them to go?
I will say when hiring a team, I think, which is important because it is really hard to do everything by yourself. And for a long time, I would say I did a lot by myself. We did a lot by ourselves. Still learn as an entrepreneur, business owner specifically, still understand the role and the details of that person's job, right? Because, for example, you hire an accountant. And then you hand over your books and you have them do the work and they meet with you and they run it down and you have a basic understanding of it.
Right.
But you need to really understand it in order to provide feedback,
To give
be
instructions
to give
and-
instructions. And I think what a lot of people do is they hire and they turn that over to that person to let them kind of run it and manage it. And I would say there's been a few areas in my business where I thought that is what I was supposed to do. When you hire someone to take over a role in your company, you let them, you know what I'm saying, you let them run it.
Yeah.
Especially when you have so many other things
That
you're
you have to
trying
do.
to manage. You don't even know if you have the bandwidth to learn a whole new a part of your industry, but you got to pay close attention to everything, you know. And there's something about,
but you're looking at things from a bird's eye view.
you're looking at from a bird's eye view, but you still need to understand the fundamentals and the basics. I would think if I could go back and do anything differently, I would have gotten an MBA. I would have gone back and gone to business school, because what I didn't realize about business school is they teach you the fundamentals of business. And I could say there's some things I just didn't understand. The bare 101 basics of business that go so far when you're building infrastructure, when you're building the core of how your business will be successful and how it will grow. There are just those few tools that a lot of entrepreneurs aren't taught, because they think you have an idea and then you get an LLC or a business and then you go. But without that infrastructure, so much failure can happen inside of that, so much learning that you just wish, if I would have just taken, you know, an extra month or two to set it up, then the success would be more fruitful, I think, in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that. It's because I have an MBA, but I went and got an MBA after I started the business.
Okay.
So there were definitely a lot of great things that I was able to take from that.
Yeah.
But when you're building something, especially as unique, sometimes it's not always a formula. But you're right, just some basic business knowledge, business terminology. Like after I started the organization and I went and got an MBA in nonprofit management, I started teaching the basics of nonprofit management. And the first thing I did was put together a nonprofit vocabulary book. Because first I got to learn the language.
They got to know the language. You got to know how to communicate. You got to know how to communicate. So was it helpful to you at all? I mean,
No, it was. Well, the difference, I think, for me is because when I went back to get an MBA in nonprofit management, because I had already started my business, every project that we did, I was able to do it for my business because I already had an established business. So a lot of the other MBA students, they were learning about, you know, MBA, but they were working for other companies. So when you had to do special projects, I would always be like, we had to do, say, a business plan.
Yeah. Oh, right.
We always did it for kids
You're like,
in the
had
spotlight.
already done a bunch of business.
Right. And I had already done too. And even like my the accounting class that I took in the MBA, we were able to take my accounting books and assess those. And so I was like,
that.
I'm
like, okay, let's.
It costs enough to be here. Let me go ahead and get some business taken care of while I'm here.
While I'm here, like,
so,
you know, I'll be the case study.
I'll be the case study, exactly.
I love that.
So it was, you know, it was definitely very, very, very helpful. And more than anything, it was the relationships too that came out of that. Because one of my board members I met at, in grad school. One of my really dear friends who's an advisory board member, I met at grad school. I had one of my professors who worked with me. His foundation donated to the organization, and he was really helping me in terms of the school. Because the ultimate goal for me is creating a performing arts boarding academy for youth in foster care. So the studio for us is that revenue generating workforce development piece to help build. Because I'm an outsider. I'm not in academia. I was fortunate after I graduated to be hired to come back and teach the basics of nonprofit management. I taught a managing the nonprofit class. But I was like, well, I don't know anything about teaching on a college level. I don't even like school. How about that?
I know.
Right?
And that was the main reason I go back. I was like, all right, I think
I'm good.
I think I wrapped that up. I think I'm good.
Zero intentions of going. After I graduated, college, undergraduate, it was 22 years, 23 years before, and I only went back because it was an MBA in nonprofit management, and I'd started this business and just kind of, like you said, just wanted to learn some of the basics.
And it's good that you did too, because I think that's a big part of being an entrepreneur is the constant desire to always want to learn more.
Oh yeah, we're forever learning.
Forever learn. Like you just want to absorb as much information as you can, so you could just be sharper and you could be more strategic and you could be a good leader. And I think that is important. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs stop. They're so focused on the grind that they stop learning how to be better in the position that they're in. And
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
Yeah. And it's balance, right?
Yeah.
Like really understanding the balance, because at one point it was grind, 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 grind. And I
Yeah.
had to have friends, even like my producer for this show, to stop and say, but look at all the things you've already accomplished.
Right.
Like stop and appreciate and give yourself a pat on the back for some of
Yeah.
the things you've already, because I'm like, girl, we got a school to be. I ain't got time to be. It's like, you just opened up a whole, you just did.
Right. Look
and
at,
it's
are you
important.
looking around? Like, yeah,
Exactly.
it's-
So
you gotta look at the
learning
moments.
that balance. Do you follow any trends in leadership?
I don't. I honestly,
that.
I honestly don't. I think because I'm in an industry that and created space specifically for a Black beer brand that didn't really exist, the trends in my industry don't apply. You know what I mean? It's not the same. I can't look at another model that is as successful as some of the larger beer brands
I like that though.
that is Black owned and has taken the same
You're
approach
pioneering.
that
Yeah.
that I've taken in terms of leading with culture and not just leading with just the product, right? Like I think I always say we're the Beats by Dre of craft beer, right? When you break Beats down, they created this emotional connection to sound. They weren't the first to invent great headphones, and honestly, they're not even the better than some of the brands that I like. Bose is amazing. They just found an opportunity to create a lifestyle around wanting premium quality products for yourself, sound for yourself, told to you by the person who's actually making the music. When you think about Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine, like they're making the product and watching people listen to it in am I allowed to curse? Are we? No, this is okay. In crappy or terrible devices to hear their music, or you sit in your car, right, and listen to music, because that's usually where you get the most the best sound in your car.
Right.
So like, wait a minute, why am I spending all this money and all this time to make this great music, and then no one's even able to listen to it the way that I can hear it in the studio? So let me make these young kids who feel it the most, give them something to feel it in the comfort of their own home, in in their own lifestyle. So when you think about Crowns and Hops and craft beer, we created something where you can see yourself, you can emotionally get attached to the brand and feel connected to the community of Crowns and Hops. So we don't just push alcohol, like drink beer. No, it's so much, we're bigger than that. It's bigger than that.
You understand the why behind it, and
we
you
want
build
you to
everything
care.
around. Yes.
Yeah, like we've, over the last 4 or 5 years, I've never used a celebrity to endorse our products. It's meant to be something that either you get it or you don't, right? And I think the way the storytelling has been thread, we know that you're gonna get it. You're always gonna get it, because if you black, white, it doesn't even matter. When you look at it, you're either gonna just say, oh my God, that art is dope. That beer tastes good. That event, I loved how I felt. I wanted to invite my friends. I wanted to be there. And now you just get the brand, and it creates a different kind of brand loyalty that I think particularly now is where customers are going. They want more than just selling them products. Like they have to see themselves, or they're not going to spend their money. And I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's good. You sure you don't have an MBA already? Because you got some good business acumen. Like
I'm just emotional. This is just my emotions pouring out of me here, and I talk about.
It's the passion behind it. You believe in the product, and it speaks volumes. And I think that's what draws people too. You're so passionate about it. I don't drink beer at all, but I'm like, let me get a little sip of this beer and see what this beer is like. I have converted the unconvertible. I call them the unconvertible simply because. You want to at least try it. So here's the deal. You don't have to love beer, right? Beer it's not for everybody. That's just like, plain and simple. But
if I can get you to try it, it definitely it expands your palate. And that's one of our core missions, is to build community, preserve culture, and expand palate. And when you expand palate, it's not just, oh, now you drink beer. If you were brave enough or are curious enough to just try this, you are now going to be curious enough to try anything different that you were so determined was something you would not like. And every time I get someone to try, let's say hazy, which is always the go-to style that converts people like, oh, I don't hate beer. This isn't bad at all. Now, the next time someone introduces you or invites you to try something that you're like, absolutely not, you might be like, I'll try it. Like, why not? And that's like the domino of you now just expanding your palate across food, across beverages, across experiences. Like, you've got to open up, and particularly in our community, we're not open enough. And that's how we grow. That's how we build, by experiencing things that you normally wouldn't. And then you pass that down to your kids or the young ones, the youth.
Wow. Well, let me, because they've already told me I only have 5 minutes, and I got about 50 more questions. And I'm pretty sure that 5 minutes was like 5 minutes ago.
5 minutes ago, yeah.
But I just want to know real quickly, as a Black woman walking into this space that's new, in terms of being on the hem of it, creating your own, what does that feel like for you walking? I'm sure you have business meetings with other brewers and things like that that don't look like you. What does that feel like for you? Are you always the only Black woman in the space, or in these business meetings? What does that feel like for you?
I don't even see it anymore.
Oh,
I've spent most
that.
of my life being the only Black woman. So I went to a private school in New York.
Okay.
And I was one of few. And growing up in New York, a city as diverse as New York, I've always had multiple groups of friends. I had groups, my little white friends that lived on 77th Street in Central Park West in the $1 million brownstones. I had my friends that lived in the hood, kind of over where I lived. I mean, I like to call myself a chameleon of cultures and experiences. So even in my job when I was in advertising, I was an executive producer on television commercials, and I was one of the only Black female executive producers at the time in a very white advertising agency. So I think you learn to not care what other people think.
Because you're comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah,
you're comfortable with who you are.
And I know that like I said, when I was 13, the minute I started to raise my head up and feel confident, when I realized I can make people feel comfortable, I can make people smile in a conversation or just put them at ease, and I always lean into that. So even in a room where I'm the only one, I'm going to make you feel some kind of pleasant, engagement with me, regardless if you like me or not.
Yes.
And then you take what you want. Take what you want from that, and then in that same moment, I'm going to show up, and I'm going to do exactly what I came to do, and I'm going to get you to do exactly what I came to do. And I think, I haven't walked in a room where I've been shook yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the bigger the business gets, there's going to be a room where I walk in and I'm really going to be the only one.
Wow.
And I'm really going to have the only kind of mentality that I have. But until then, just show up as my authentic self.
One of my very favorite public speakers, and I call her a mentor, is Jade Simmons. And Jade says that purpose is not the thing you do, but it's the thing that happens in others when you do what you do. And you walk in purpose, and that thing happens in others when you walk in the room. I could go on and on and on. This is just so rich. You've dropped so much on us to just grapple with and just think about and chew on and grow, grow in areas where we felt insecure. So thank you so much for being here. Let me ask you, one leader that you admire. Can I get one?
Oh, God, I am so bad. I'm not going to say my old age. and names have gotten worse. Can you not ask me that question?
Okay, I won't ask you that question. I'm gonna leave it up to your mom, Miss Yvette Robinson. That is a leader.
Thank you. You know, it's okay. You know what? I'm glad you say that to redeem myself a little bit from not having an actual answer to that question. I will say my mom, and I'm in the middle of shooting a campaign now for our heritage. We're dropping new products for Black History Month called the Heritage. It's an amber lager. It's so good. And part of the conversation that we're asking, we're sitting with influencers, or what is your heritage? And my heritage is strength, and I got that from my mom. And watching her be the woman that she got to be, and even though she's not able to see what I've built, every day I see myself more and more like her and in her footsteps without her physically being here. I am literally Yvette Robinson. So being raised by that woman and seeing her, you know, get a key to the city of Indianapolis and just all these crazy things at a young age is like, that is my leader, I think, every day.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Miss Beny Ashburn. Thank you
for having me
so much. That is our show. Y'all already know it's so hard for me to wrap up when I'm having these amazing conversations with phenomenal leaders like Beny. I'm so grateful for her being here. But I need you to do those 3 magical words. I would encourage you to do those 3 magical words. Like, share, and subscribe. I hope that I know you've gotten something today that will help you on your leadership journey. So until next time, stay focused, stay ready, and be the leader that you were called to be. Bye now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is our show for today. I hope you were inspired and you gained some valuable nuggets that will help you to become a better leader and to walk in your God-given authority. Bye until next time.